My first advice to anyone even thinking of opening a studio would be that why do you want to open a studio?
वही क्योंकि मैं भी पहले सोच रहा था it's not a profitable business.
Please don't waste your money on expensive monitors. Rather spend on some great pair of headphones which can give you a lot of detail and have a second reference and understand your speakers better rather than being like oh यार ये monitor ले लेता हूँ और मेरा काम solve हो जाएगा. ऐसा कभी नहीं होगा.
If you just stuck with one genre, you might not learn too much. And if you go to the more complex ones, तो और ज़्यादा दिमाग खुलता है कि अच्छा और क्या हो रहा है पीछे. And but we can't make cheesy stuff. मैंने वो तो देख लिया कि चीज़ ही नहीं बन सकता मेरे से बादशाह नहीं बन सकता. And instrumental music in general, like we don't even say it's instrumental when you make electronic music first of all. That's usually the term that comes along in a country as a such because the lyrics कहाँ है bro? Lyrics कब आएंगे?
Exactly. This song came about as a part of a project that I got funding from MAP Bangalore, and even Berklee Boston was involved in this. So they selected like 4 producers in India, and then I fortunately got selected. And the rule was you can only use sounds you've recorded in the city.
Right.
And so what I did, like I went all the way 100%.
What's up guys, welcome to today's podcast. आज के podcast मैंने अभिषेक को बुलाया who goes by the artist name Goya and also has his own space called Kitsugi Studios. So welcome bro, wanted to get your in-depth experience about like किस तरह से तू music बना रहा है आजकल. There's a lot of things you're doing. So how's it going? How's Delhi?
It's going great. Delhi is very rainy right now, but it's great.
I mean like हम लोग को काफ़ी सेटअप करने में टाइम लग गया चीज़ पे राइट. काफी OBS पता नहीं क्या सेटअप करा है.
But thanks to you, but like you helped me out.
No, thank you for making this. Thank you for having patience. And I mean मैं जानना चाह रहा था कि what all you have been up to and क्या चीज़ें चल रही हैं. So yeah, first could you tell about us कि क्या चीज़ें what do you do? I mean in general, like what kind of music you make, and just explain about yourself a bit to our users.
Yeah. So I would say if I was to introduce myself, I'm Abhishek, and I make all sorts of music because I run a recording studio. So because of that, I'm always exposed to a very diverse kind of music from very different genres and very different artists from all around India, even outside India. Then the other parallel of me as a musician is Goya, which is my own project, which is if I don't like classifying things into genres, but if I was to, then it would probably be experimental, electronic and ambient.
Right.
And that's the space I usually experiment within, and I have my own influences. And I think even the music that comes through other artists to the studio is also stuff that I learn from. I get inspired by that. A lot of things I learn from other artists. So
right.
I think there's a lot of most of my day-to-day is all filled with like different kinds of music. Yeah.
That's great. But how did this all start? Like, I mean, like, तेरी journey कैसे शुरू हुई? Like, in the sense of, like, did you start with performing more of guitar or like directly electronic music बनाना शुरू कर दिया?
I mean, no, directly music तो नहीं मैंने बनाना शुरू किया. मेरी शुरुआत एज अ गिटार प्लेयर ही हुई थी. माई मेन इंस्ट्रूमेंट इज गिटार. सो आई थिंक मैं 13 साल का था जब व्हेन आई स्टार्टेड प्लेइंग गिटार एंड यू पास आउट ऑफ कॉलेज व्हेन यू आर 22. सो आई थिंक टिल जब तक मैं कॉलेज में था, स्कूल प्लस कॉलेज, आई वॉज मोस्टली अ गिटार प्लेयर. And by the time I was finishing college, I got exposed to recording. मैं एक studio गया उस समय पे and we recorded our music as a band. मैं देखा कि कैसे recording होती है, कैसे production होती है, recording का मतलब क्या होता है, recording का concept क्या होता है, क्यों record करना है कुछ, and वो सब समझा. तो मेरे को बहुत I was very fascinated by it. So I was like, okay, let's start learning. And I think although I've learned a lot of music as theory and like a guitar from GMI, I was in GMI for a very long time.
Right.
And I've not learnt music production, mixing and recording and running a studio from anyone. It's mostly been my own journey, you know, like धीरे करके, like बहुत सारी गलतियाँ करके.
And JMI में mostly like you went with like the guitar as a skill.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was
interesting.
Yeah. In fact, to be honest, स्टूडियो शुरू करने से 1 साल पहले तक मैं ये भी सोच रहा, मैंने किंत्सुगी स्टूडियोज स्टार्ट हुआ था 2015 में. सो उससे 1 साल पहले तक मैं आई थिंक आई वांटेड टू गो आउटसाइड इंडिया एंड स्टडी परफॉर्मेंस also. So I changed my trajectory because I think I realized that performance is something I can also do here, and also because of some financial decisions, I was like, okay, let's do this because this seems like something that I can hold on to for a long time.
Man, that's the thing. So I hate to say this, but like I feel like mentioning this here, that one of the reasons we got in contact with each other is because you were going to ask me like, how is it to just go out and
and study,
and study, and and the fact that you told me that tera already studio hai and you have everything set. I just told you, bro, like there's no need, like you're on the path of like what a person would do from there, do masters and do all of that. But there are still many options, right? Like I feel anyone could do online certification bhi kar sakta hai koi, to get that sort of experience. But I don't feel in production at a point if it's needed, like if you continue to, agar tu continue rakhe apna practicality, because you're everyday recording, right? Every day you're mixing, mastering. And then of course you are like, hum log ko shayad se we have to be open to tutorials and like updating our art.
I'm very open to that. On that note, what I realized, because I think हमारी बात हुई थी 2021 में, and I made the decision to not go. After talking to a lot of people, and even after talking to some people who were outside doing their thing, even some people who are after college professionally doing work there, I realized, one, that I'm already doing what they're doing, and also secondly that maybe I got it wrong, that what I wanted to do was meet new professionals and music people who are, artists who are super passionate about their music and are at a very good place with their art. So maybe education is not the route for that.
Correct.
The route to that is probably go to another country as a tourist, stay there for a month, interact with the community. That's also a way to, which I already on that note, I just did that. I attended a music residency in Portugal for 2 weeks. So, which did exactly what I wanted to do, and it was not education.
Plus, if you would have went to masters or like, let's just say any degree, you might have not gotten the same level. There might be one or two people, that maybe I can say that when I went to masters, like I was, I just changed my trajectory from being in computer science to being where I am, because I had a different kind of like stream altogether. I didn't want to do that. So, but ऐसे मेरे पास काफी और भी बंदे थे जो they were fresh new. So, if you would have come there, maybe the experience would have been drastically different, because you've already opened a studio, you're running it. From that stance, it doesn't make sense. So, that's great, man. Like, so where was this in Portugal? कहाँ पर था? Like,
so this was, I'll tell you. So this was a residency called Break in Case of Emergency 2023, and it's their first edition, and they called the residency wasn't about making music. It was mostly about everything that revolves around music, which us as artists don't think about or don't give enough importance to, like, how to release music, how to promote music, who are you as a musician, what is your image as a musician, and like, working on all of those things. And there were a lot of like, it happened in this small town in Portugal called Aveiro.
Acha.
Yeah, it's like 2 hours drive from the capital, and but beautiful place, man. And just the culture there, the people, in spite of being a small town, it has a lot of culture. It has like a very cool music community. And for me, the biggest connect was I found people who are into exactly the same kind of music that I make, and which is a little hard in India, because I'm making like like I described, I'm making experimental ambient electronic, which is vocal-less. You know, there's most of my music has no vocal.
And instrumental music in general, like, we don't even say it's instrumental when you make electronic music, first of all. That's usually the term that comes along in a country as such, because the lyrics kahan hai bro, lyrics kab aayenge?
Exactly. Exactly.
मेरा दोस्त मजाक उड़ाता है मेरे म्यूजिक का in that context कि bro lyrics कब आने वाले यार?
But exactly. I face the same thing here, you know, like even if I mean, because we're joking about it, like if I'm at a party and I play my song, I'll be like, okay, people will be like, okay, you know, what's next? Like, because it's not, I think people here are, and ऐसा नहीं है कि सब लोग ऐसे हैं, but
I think it's changing little by little. Yeah.
But a huge mass here wants to listen to pop, and like, or the farthest they'll go is like independent pop, or like, you know, they will not come to experimental electronic very easily unless they have those kind of influences.
I think what I'm noticing little by little in the commercial industry as well, ki people are getting bored of that, you know, the same thing over and over again. Same cheez काफी लोग बना रहे हैं. Like, you know, so now they start to judge, like, people are getting clever, I feel, in terms of क्या पीछे क्या हो रहा है, you know, like what's happening in the music. Vocals ठीक है. And it's going towards that side, like what more can you do? And that's where all these things come along. Okay, resampling and whatnot that we're working with in IDM context. So I'm sure, like, तू जब music बना रहा होता है, like और लोगों के लिए, तो this fact that you've made like intelligent, like, you know, ambient music definitely helps you in diving into different rhythms and making things experimental for them, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it also, I think it's more about, because we're talking about other people's music, one of the, you know, sharing one of the processes I follow in the very beginning is when an artist comes to me, the first thing for me is to assess what does their composition require for it to become a finished song where they can release it. Sometimes my suggestion to them might be that, bro, your song sounds like great, जैसा तुम मेरे को सुना रहे हो अभी, it doesn't need anything, or maybe it just needs like one more guitar, or maybe it just needs this piano with it. But in other cases it might be, hey man, let's make a full blown electronic music production of this track or something. And this is when a lot of artists who come to me they don't have a direction already. They're like, they want my input on what can be done with it. So yeah, like it's always about, for me, it's always about first decide. It's not about मैं क्या कर सकता हूँ. It's always about for me
what the song requires. Definitely.
Exactly. गाने को क्या चाहिए.
But in that context, like for example, anyone says कि भाई इसमें ऐसा कुछ advance हो जाए या फिर कुछ create हो जाए, then definitely it's helpful as a IDM ambient producer probably.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, if they want some, sorry to cut you, but like if they want something that I normally do as Goya, then that's a very I'm super happy as a person, because I'm like, okay, this is something I do without effort, so I can do, you know.
Yeah, that's great.
Which is a lucky thing to have.
I mean, same for me, because like मैंने अलग type के genres बना लिए. Like I mean, मैं personally progressive house बना रहा होता हूँ, right? And I started with a lot of ambient music actually. Ambient भी सुनता था मैं. So after making all of that, now I've tried forcing myself into hip hop or synthwave or dissecting every different kind of genres and samples and such. अब कोई बोल रहा होता है ना कि synthwave के अंदर कुछ IDM कर दो. So then I know कि what rhythms I could play around with or resampling could be done. So definitely वो helpful होते हैं. तो in short, what we're trying to say is कि like कि अगर if you just stuck with one genre, you might not learn too much. And if you go to the more complex ones, तो और ज़्यादा दिमाग खुलता है कि अच्छा और क्या हो रहा है पीछे. And so for people like us who are already making IDM stuff, to make popular stuff and maybe slightly gets easier. But yeah, we can't make cheesy stuff. मैंने वो तो देख लिया कि cheesy नहीं बन सकता मेरे से बादशाह नहीं बन सकता. But yeah, bro, I mean, another question that I wanted to ask you today, like you're running a like music space in Delhi for some years now. There are so many challenges. काफ़ी सारे लोग कोशिश करते हैं स्टूडियो खोलने की, and they have like dreams to open a studio as well. It's like such a nice experience, you know that, to run a music space and just to have your own space and grow it little by little. So how did you start, and what do you think, like, I think we spoke about this, like we could talk about the approach of how to open up a music space in Delhi, or what are the challenges, what kind of clients you deal with and such, like, could you share that?
I think, so where should I start? There's a lot.
You can start with like how it started for you, and from there we can dive in.
So I think how it started for me was back in 2015. I had already started recording and producing because I was a performer back then. I used to perform with some artists, and I used to also perform my own music as a duo with this singer called Pakhi back then. And so I realized that I am already recording, and I was recording at home, and I used to ask everyone to be hush hush at home, don't make noise and all of that. And then obviously, like, it's hard to record at home. And so what I did was I set up a very small studio, and it was a 1-room project studio in CR Park. And I started work from there. And this was a point that no one knew about me as a producer like that, So it was literally like starting from complete blank state. I don't have a degree in music like that. What I did have was that people knew that I can compose and I'm a musician. So that helped sometimes. And so one of the challenge, coming to the challenges part of it, one of the first challenges someone is going to face when they're setting up a studio is to treat and proof it acoustically. Acoustically treat and proof it. And that is also something that I have learned myself by making a lot of mistakes. So I consulted some, acousticians at that point, but in the end I decided to do it myself. I was like, let's understand, and I did make mistakes, and I had to live with those mistakes also. But at the same time, what it did, the good it did was that when I built this studio, which I'm sitting in right now, I had a much better idea of what to do. And so that would be the first challenge, that you have to figure out, how you're going to proof it, how are you going to treat it.
Because I'm sure, like, even living in Delhi, there's like a lot of noise. काफी noisy neighborhood हो सकती है ना, like where you probably live, because Delhi काफी, it's usually काफी busy है. That plus the fact of, like, जो तू बोल रहा है कि to get like a proper recording and a nice listening space, monitoring room, there's so many problems. It's not easy.
There's a lot
वो मुश्किल रहता ही है. सबसे पहली hurdle I guess ये.
Yeah, exactly. Like like exactly what you said, that how you're listening and how you're recording are the. Actually, I would say how you're listening is probably the most important, because if you can't listen properly, you can't even assess how you've recorded.
कि सही है कि नहीं है वो.
Exactly. So you have to sort that out, and people a lot of times they'll ask me like, hey man, what monitors should I buy or whatever, and my suggestion to them is like, hey, please
invest in the room, right?
Or if you really want to have a good set of something to listen on, please don't waste your money on expensive monitors. Rather spend on some great pair of headphones which can give you a lot of detail and have a second reference and understand your speakers better, rather than being like, oh यार ये monitor ले लेता हूँ और मेरा काम solve हो जाएगा. ऐसा कभी नहीं होगा. Like you'll have to understand how music translates, and so without understanding the speakers you have, you cannot upgrade. And
correct.
So I think
that's for me basically, for me basically, like when I was away from my studio, जब मैं studio पे था ही नहीं, right? I was in Bangalore, मैं कुछ time वहाँ पे पढ़ा है, तो I used to use my headphones and my car as the reference, and that's how I mixed like 2-3 album जो कि मैंने आज डाल रखे होते कि ये मैंने mix करी है. Definitely कि जब studio बन गया, it kind of elevated, because मैं और चीज़ें सुनने लग गया. I feel like I started listening to more stuff. मेरे को और and I could hear कि bass का perception actually है कैसा, you know, like कि अगर मैं कोई compressor लगा रहा हूँ, कोई EQ लगा रहा हूँ, so हो क्या रहा है, right? So definitely यार room मतलब life बदल देता है. I'm sure like जब तेरा studio जब बना होगा, so it kind of like just like pushed you to make music काफी faster बन रहा होगा, or like, you know, like so what else, like I mean I'm sure that's not the issue.
No, there's a lot, there's so much. Like with studios, it's like I think my first advice to anyone even thinking of opening a studio would be that why do you want to open a studio?
वही, क्योंकि मैं भी पहले सोच रहा था, it's not a profitable business in general, like I mean
it can be a profitable business,
it can be, but like
it will take you a while, and it will
in
take
terms of investment I'm saying like the जितनी investment कर देते हैं कुछ स्टूडियो में, कभी कभार ज़्यादा ही कर देते हैं, उसका जो रिटर्न आना होता है वो एकदम से नहीं आता, और वो भी लाइफ में आना है नहीं आना है, वो भी बहुत सारे फैक्टर्स पे डिपेंड करता है.
Exactly.
So जस्ट लाइक जनरली कोई स्टूडियो खोलने जा रहा है आज की डेट में, तो उसको ये पूछना डेफिनेटली जरूरी है. थैंक्स फॉर सेइंग दैट.
क्यों रन करना है तुम्हें स्टूडियो? बिकॉज rather than that you could also, and this is coming from someone who's been running the studio, so because this is also a question that hits me, that okay, Yes, I run now. Kitsugi Studios is an entity, but even Abhishek is an entity who, without Abhishek, maybe Kitsugi Studios might not exist.
Definitely,
you know, it's not the other way around.
Is the soul somehow, right? Like
exactly.
The studio.
Yeah, exactly. So you know that, and that also makes you realize that okay, like I could right now be sitting in Bombay or in another country somewhere working in some random studio. It does not matter. The studio does not matter.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, on some level, yes, it does. But on a lot of levels, who you're working with matters, you know, like, and I think that's what people should focus on more, even when they open the studio. Like, I think for me, when I opened my studio, it was important for me to give it a very earthy feel. Like, if you come to my studio, it's very, a lot of wood, a lot of like, you know, it's also made in a certain way where it does not intimidate. It's not, you know, super dark, or like, you know, it's like a lot of sunlight in the room. And and just like, you know, it's been made like a place where you can sit and do things for 12 hours and not feel anything. So that is something that, again, is something that I thought about very early on, that, hey man, let's build a space which connects with the musicians because they're musicians, you know. So that's another,
I feel कि music music studio बनाने का one of the main intents usually comes from the owner itself. First of all, अगर किसी को studio चाहिए तो studio तो बना ही लेगा, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
क्योंकि अब उसके बाद उसको ये कि मैं studio उस context में बना रहा हूँ कि I will run it, then he needs to maybe put like a little bit more investment. काफ़ी लोग जनरली भी स्टार्ट कर देते हैं स्टूडियो लाइक विद नॉट दैट मच इन्वेस्टमेंट और अकॉस्टिक ट्रीटमेंट. बट व्हाट आई एम ट्राइंग टू से इज दैट कि मैंने भी जब स्टार्ट करा था चीज़ें, सो वन ऑफ द मेन इंटेंट इज वाज कि पहले मेरे को तो एक अच्छा आउटपुट मिले फॉर माई म्यूजिक, राइट? एंड फ्रॉम देयर थिंग्स स्टार्ट. सो दैट इंटेंट मे बी मेक सेंस. अगर वो बोल रहा है कि नहीं, मेरे को अपने लिए एक रूम चाहिए और मे बी देन आई कैन build it as a studio. So
also it's a very different thing to have a studio for your own projects and have a studio for other people. So that's another thing that I think people should think about before they open a studio, is that okay, is this studio who is this space for, which is very good to define early on, so you know which direction you're heading in.
क्योंकि if you started renting the studio, उसमें फिर वो like people start coming in and using your equipments, because I think you started that. तूने शुरू करा था अभी recently. I remember it.
So that's like a separate space though. It's not we don't let that happen in the main space. It's a space we've dedicatedly made for people who can come and use the equipment and has the same vibe as the other studio. And so you know, which they can rent out and use for their recordings.
So basically what Abhishek is trying to say is that like he has a separate control room itself for people who can rent it out. कोई भी rent कर सकता है ये वाले rooms. You can contact like Abhishek for that. Like I think it's super affordable prices, and like you can find the right equipments and the acoustic knowledge of what he's learned along the years. So I mean, I feel like it's a really cool thing, man. Like I felt like a lot of people would be benefiting from this. Again, now let's go to our next question. What kind of projects do you do under Goya? Like, I mean, what kind of music style does Goya specifically has? I know you said like intelligent ambient music in general.
Yeah.
Could you dive more into the concept of how Goya came along, and you know, basically the idea of what kind of genres that you are also making for the clients, something like because what you were saying earlier is that like most of the music that you are associating yourself with is that you wanted to come through Goya, right? Because that's your main artist.
Slowly,
your main
yes,
soul.
I want. That's not been true for a lot of time, but I wanted to eventually. I want people also to come to me because they hear that he makes this kind of music, and if we want to have some character that is similar to that, then they can come to me. So, but so your first question was about how did Goya come about, and that's your first question.
Correct.
Yeah. So I think Goya Goya कि मैंने नाम गोया डिसाइड किया था 2018 में, बट उससे पहले मैं गाने बना रहा था अपने, एंड देयर आर सम सॉन्ग्स जो अभी तक रिलीज भी नहीं हुए हैं. दे वर जस्ट सॉन्ग्स दैट आई मेड.
there's always those songs.
मिक्स भी हो गए थे, मास्टर भी हो गए थे, सब कुछ हो गए थे, बट एट द एंड आई डिसाइडेड बाय द टाइम केम दैट अच्छा अब रिलीज करते हैं, तो आई हैड ऑलरेडी मूव्ड ऑन फ्रॉम दैट साउंड. So I was like, okay, now let's.
That's one problem. That's one thing we can definitely discuss, man. Like, please tell me.
Yeah, exactly. Like moving on from a certain sound is a very natural thing, and it's acceptable. It's fine. It's a journey of every musician. So Goya started in 2019, and that's when my first song released, and then since then I've released, I think now I have around 12 songs on streaming, where it's 4 songs are a part of an EP and 8 songs are singles. I am coming up with an EP this year and an album early next year. This is something that I haven't said anywhere, so it's
nice.
It's so it's all ready, it's all prepared. I'm looking at ways of how to put it out in the right way so that it reaches the right audience, and set up proper marketing and promotional plans around it. So I'm doing all of that right now, but it's all ready to go. And in terms of Goya sound, I think I'm still in the process of evolving my sound. After I release all of this music, I'll have probably like 22 songs on streaming, which is not a very small number, but what I've realized is I'm probably I'm gonna take the chance of comparing to someone I've respected and listened to for a lot of years.
Right.
Like I feel that's the kind of person I want to be, where like Steven Wilson is the guy, because he's someone who, if you listen to Steven Wilson, which is also like Porcupine Tree, he's the brain behind Porcupine Tree. If you listen to the 90s stuff versus 2000 stuff versus 2010 stuff and now, there is a whole journey, man. Like it's not the same stuff he's making, it could also be that you could hear one thing and then hear the other and you'll be like, oh, is this even made by the same person? But if you know Steven Wilson, you'll probably be able to tell this been made by the same person. But what I'm trying to say is that I think I love to have the same kind of feelings and like it's hard to explain like that, but
correct.
But I would love to I would love to not stop at experimental electronic. I would not want to stop at ambient. I would want to be like, okay, how would it be tomorrow to make an album with a group of percussion players where electronica and percussion and like like a crazy combination like that. So, but it would still be under Goya.
That's what I've noticed in your music. In general, I've noticed that like ethnic character that you tend to add. Like I recently listened to the track that you collaborated with the tabla player and
Naad.
Naad. And I was just playing it on my monitors and I was like, man, this is vibes. This is sounding so good. It's sounding like a Buddha bar. Like it just took me back to a nostalgic state. But the idea, what I was trying to say is that I've always found कि तेरे music में काफी ethnic चीजें होती हैं, and you tend to go along with that. And I think that's what you're trying to say, because you would also keep on experimenting with different percussions, rhythm, and whatnot, right? Like yeah. So, but like the idea of you diving into analog gear, I think you use quite a lot of synths. तो काफी synth के साथ खेलता है, because that's your sonic, and that's like really important.
I'm a big fan of synthesizers.
So now that you're even performing as Goya, right? Like how's the experience? What's going on?
Of performing live?
Yes, performing live, because you started incorporating that. Yeah. I mean, like
so. I mean, it's I haven't performed as Goya a lot right now. I just started performing last year in September.
Right.
So it's been very new, recent. It's not even been one full year, but I think it's going good in terms of the kind of gigs I've done and the kind of opportunities I've gotten. One really like humbling, I mean, really cool opportunity for me was when I opened for this band called HVOB in December. And so for me right now, the journey has been good. I think I want to, again, like I come from this point of view that I want to improve myself in terms of what is the experience I'm providing and why am I playing this? Like, because at the end of the day, for electronic music that I've made, a lot of that music is not meant to be performed for a club, first of all. It's meant for other kinds of spaces. So for me, one of the challenges has been to identify that, hey, let's curate a gig which is actually successful, where people actually end up having an experience, then they leave remembering what they just heard. And
makes more sense, because if you create an experience like that, like that,
exactly.
Usually काफी लोगों ने start ऐसे करा कि they started making their own parties.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm forgetting some names, but like there used to be like many bands from India as well who started making their own gigs, अपनी own farmhouse में party करने लगे, and they just called their own people, and they just enjoyed themselves and started to become like bigger this crowd that listens to that kind of music.
Yeah.
And so that's great, man. Like, I mean, I feel ki that's why I was asking you, because you recently started performing, the fact of starting that experience, and like, are you keeping your I mean, I would want to not waste too much time, and let's get into the music side of things, but just wanted to quickly ask you, in the sense, like, do you keep your live setup really complicated? Do you perform with synths, or like it's pretty straightforward?
I'll tell you. So what I do usually is that I'm performing with Ableton Live as a performer myself. So what I do is all my songs are slightly different from how they are on streaming. I don't like to do the exact same thing live. I would definitely make them longer, and sometimes I'll change the arrangements, sometimes I'll change how they start, how they end, but there is it's mostly an Ableton Live set, where in the session view I have, like, there's always some stuff that's playing by itself, because I can't play all the instruments. Like, if it's like 10 instruments, I can't play all of them. So what I will do mainly for all songs is that I'll be playing one or two main instruments in one song. I don't go beyond playing two instruments in one song, it gets too hectic. And I'll be doing a lot of like effect automations for transitions and stuff, and
for the all the stuff that's happening in your track, basically.
Yes, not for all the stuff, but definitely for things like, I'll give an example. So for one of the tracks, I'd like to play with the delay on the hi-hat, so that I can make the groove shift, keep like sort of shifting a little bit, or like
variations and movements. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Simple things, not too complicated a lot. And then I focus a lot on trying to improvise my melodies differently for my live performance, so that people can actually, they can be like, oh, we know this song, but now it sounds different, and it's like, oh, this is like new.
Correct. So everything is basically happening in the session view or the arrangement view. Like, for example, session view, like you have like maybe 5
I have all the
songs.
And I'm constantly, like, with every gig now I'm playing, I've done like some 10 gigs in this last like I've done almost one gig every month for the past 9-10 months, and every gig I try to improve my live set to first make myself enjoy it more. Because what happens when you're playing this kind of music is that you will get bored first. Because you'll be like, hey man, why am I playing the same? I mean, this is what happens with me, that I don't want to play the same thing again and again. You know, so
a lot of people don't. But yes.
Yeah, I guess so.
And that makes things boring. Yeah, right. I mean,
and
a really good inspiration, like there's this guy called Max Cooper. वो बंदा अपने हर एक सेटअप के लिए अलग विजुअल्स बनाता है, लाइक बनाते हैं, बनते हैं, जनरेट होते हैं उस बंदे के हर एक, बिकॉज इट्स जस्ट क्रेजी मैन. लाइक सो उसका हर एक लाइव सेट डिफरेंट है, म्यूजिक के कंटेक्स्ट में भी और विजुअल के कंटेक्स्ट में भी. दैट्स लाइक माइंड ब्लोइंग, बट आई थिंक दैट्स व्हाट यू ट्राइंग टू इनकॉर्पोरेट एज वेल. दैट्स व्हिच इज रियली ग्रेट. काफी सही चीज़ है यार. एंड लाइक सो एवरीथिंग इज हैपनिंग इन सेशन व्यू एंड यू आर नॉट ट्रिगरिंग एनी मिडी Ableton से synth में.
I am doing that also. I'm doing that also. Yes.
Okay.
So there are some songs. Yes, there are some of my tracks which are completely like. I'll take an example of this track called Tosca, which is.
I've heard that track, man. I love it. Yeah, that's one of the first tracks that I heard from you. Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
And that ended up like a lot in with a lot of plays and such, right?
Yeah. It's one of my tracks that has the most streams.
Streams, yes.
And. So that's a song that I need to feed in MIDI to my synthesizer, and it outputs the sound. And the whole song, for me, the performance of that song is actually because there's considerable amount of modulations on my Moog synthesizer that I have to do to perform that song. So my entire performance involves doing that. And every time I play it, I try to do something different, and it like, you know, it's very interesting for me to do that.
Right.
But obviously I'm not like playing the notes.
No, but it's important to have them like, you know, set. Yeah.
Exactly.
Because that's the experience. But what I'm trying to say is that तेरे को कभी latency नहीं आती, like you're like you try, right? I mean, because your तेरे sets काफी like वो है like light,
heavy, man. No, they're heavy, man. Actually,
they're heavy.
They're heavy. So I'd say I'm taking advantage of my laptop in this case, because one of the reasons I got very late in starting to perform live was because I needed a laptop that can handle it all. And like the new laptop, Touchwood, like this M1 Max is like
just runs anything, right?
Pretty like solid that way. And sometimes I'll even bump the buffers down to like 32 samples or 68 samples, and it's there's no hiccup like that.
So just to ask you quickly, I mean, in the context of the live industry, you were saying कि अपनी gigs खुद बनानी पड़ती है. But like, is the industry changing? Like, since you're saying that you've been perform कर रहे last 9 months से with the kind of music that you make, how is the Delhi scene in the context of electronic music at the moment? Or like even in India, I'm sure like you might have not just performed in Delhi. I have no idea. But could you tell us more about that? Because I would love to know myself as well. What's going on in Delhi?
So in Delhi, I think it's very dependent on where you're performing. Who are you performing for? So I won't take any names in this case, but you might be playing at a club where you were playing in a show where, you know, like the entry is free and people are just coming to. So you might not have very dedicated audience in that case, because I mean, I don't, because like one, my music is not very well known across the city and the country right now. But secondly, like people have very short attention spans, and people are nowadays. People are in clubs these days for certain kinds of music. So I'm not playing that kind of music. Now, I've done some very successful gigs in clubs where, and these are always ticketed events, because like people who pay and come, they know that they've come to see someone, you know.
Someone, yeah.
Otherwise, they won't come.
The intent is still there, yeah. Like,
exactly.
Because अगर वो free के लिए आ जाएगा तो बोलेगा हाँ ठीक है.
Whatever, you know, like. But even in that case, yeah, like clubs are a place which are noisy and like stuff. So for electronic music, electronic music is very vast. If you're a DJ performing a mix which is you know, like collection of great banging tracks, and like it'll make people dance, sure, people will be vibing to your
but
stuff.
That's more in the DJ style. And
I
mean, what I'm trying to also understand is like काफी लोगों ने कोशिश करी है to bring up every synth and everything on the like, in the set, and people don't
care about it.
Yeah, don't really care about, because it's coming. It's coming at some point in like everywhere ki like sirf NH7 ही एक serious event नहीं होगा when it comes to an artist even, because everything else seems like okay, either it's somewhere between the commercial thing or the artistry is, I think, just like in the music genre itself.
It's about it's, I mean, and I don't mean to say that people don't care about it at all or whatever. Like, it's actually, I don't think they should care about it unless you're a musician. Like, if I've always been a musician, so it really matters to me. For me as a kid, and I'm still a kid, I would say, but for me as a kid to go to gigs where gear is present, like crazy synthesizers, I would always be like peeking, ke bro, ye kya use kar raha hai? I want to see what he's using. Yeah. But to people who don't listen to, people who don't make music, for them, they still find it interesting, but they will find the sound interesting and the experience interesting.
Yeah.
And
I think this might be changing in the near future, because काफी लोग घुस रहे हैं यार म्यूजिक प्रोडक्शन में. एक तो
for sure, a lot of people,
right?
yes,
and
yeah.
काफी सारे लोग बोर भी हो रहे हैं एक same type के stuff से. So I think the crowd is evolving. Like it takes time, because we always either look at the western side or the other side, and then we try to include our own Bollywood stuff in it. But like I feel ki we are evolving as a crowd. So bro, I mean, with further delay, I would love for you to like show us couple of tricks that you usually implement in your production.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think we spoke about that track Dilli.
Sure.
वो भी काफी cool था. Like मैंने काफी time पहले उसकी videos देखी थी, and I would love to hear about that. And please.
Okay, awesome. So I'm gonna do that. Again, to show tricks, there are shitloads of tricks and there's shitloads of techniques and everything. I'm probably just going to focus on a couple of things.
Right.
This is one of my songs called Dilli, which I was talking about. Do you think it's probably a good idea to just play a little bit of it first?
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to probably pause here. Okay. So, I mean for those...
Before you tell us anything,
sure.
Which mic was this where you recorded all these Foley's? Because it sounds really clear, the water, like splashes and everything.
Yeah, so I've actually... because I've recorded a lot, I think I used only one mic. I took the Zoom H6 everywhere. What I would have really wanted to do was take like contact microphones and experiment more, but I didn't have the time. This was actually this song came about as a part of a project that I got funding for from MAP Bangalore, and even Berklee Boston was involved in this. So they selected like 4 producers in India, and then I fortunately got selected, and they asked every producer to make a track based on their city, and the rule was you can only use sounds recorded from, I mean, there wasn't a rule, but they said that at least 90% of your song should be made up of sounds that you've recorded in the city.
Right.
And so what I did, like I went all the way 100%. So technically there is nothing in this song that is there's no musical instrument basically, unless I've like, you know, I would take a sample and then probably put it in wavetable, and then that becomes an instrument. But
okay, yeah, that at least you would do, right? Otherwise, how would
otherwise
musically sound?
You can still do it. It's harder. It's very hard.
Musically, it's there, but like just to make it interesting, I'm sure. Like
exactly,
the drums tune banaye honge, like all these.
Sure, so there is no. I mean, now later I layered up a kick, but even so coming to that, like, you know, so you were talking about the splashes. You hear it here, like I'm just gonna. So I'm gonna make the. I'm now gonna go to the project. So let's just mute this, and so that's where it says like rhythm section. So yeah.
Could you like make everything macro, like? Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Better.
Yeah.
Let's take this side. Yeah. So if we go a little in the back, यहाँ पे filter लगा हुआ है, but yeah. So this groove. So this is actually this is the sound as it says. I don't know if you can see, but it says boat groove. So this was recorded. I sat with a boatman in the Yamuna. And I went there at 5 o'clock in the morning one day, and then I asked him to row the boat, and I recorded all those sounds. So I recorded the sound of the splashes and everything, and and at that point I did not have an idea that I'm going to make this groove. But the idea was that, so Dilli is a track which has come out from that inspiration that, sorry, excuse me. Yeah, that's come out from the inspiration that there's music around us, you know, like there's a lot around us. So like it's how to capture something and then make something interesting off of it is what was the challenge in this song. So like it's a very simple groove actually. It's like not very complicated. But
with the kick it sounds like interesting as soon as the rhythm comes in, right?
Yeah, so it's like, you know, you can see here, like this is the kick track, this is the splashes track, and this is the second kick track, and this is a row. So it's like kind of like swinging. The groove is a very swinging groove, and then you I layered a kick to it, like an Ableton kick. This just gives it more, and then you add bass to it. Simple bass line. It's a very it's a wavetable, and even this is the one of the examples of, so the bass is made from this says like Zoom 0070, which was a recording I did of an escalator in the Delhi metro, because it was rumbling, like a lot of bass in that. So, you know, when you record that sound and put it in the wavetable, it already has a lot of low end information. So like check this out. This is the solo, like the raw sound. So, you know, it's like a machine almost, like
and isko tune basically, when you drag, like in Serum usually happens, right, like that wo convert kar deta hai waveform mein. So in wavetable also it happens that I think we can drag it.
I just drag it here and
and it converts it into waveform bana deta hai uski paas.
Exactly, and then you can select basically which part of the thing you want to use it.
Interesting. And so I thought that happened in only Serum. Isme bhi hota hai. Nice.
No, all wavetable synthesizers.
All wavetable synths could have this, right?
Yeah. Then everything in this track, man, has been recorded outside. So, you know, like I'll show you the next thing. One of the most interesting things for me, like which was kind of fascinating for me as well, was, so listen to this, and I'm not sure if you'll be able to probably guess what this could have been, but I'll let you try.
Okay. I could guess it. Maybe it's the metro beep.
Exactly. Yeah. But if you don't play this now, I'll just quickly make you listen to how.
If you don't play it, I would. But I know where you've used it in the track, and it doesn't sound like.
So if you listen to the whole thing.
Yeah. It sounds like a road piano or something. Like maybe played in the higher scale. Yeah.
Exactly. So now I'll make you listen to the raw sound. It's like. So it's completely different, and it was about using that in some way, and like, you know. So this I've again done with a simple sampler.
Correct. And that's here, right? Like I can see it here.
Yeah, it's here. And you know, I would maybe filter cut it, add a lot of reverb, and then and another thing that I'm not sure if there's an example of this in this song, but I use a lot of granulator. I would load up a sample in a granulator, and then because granulators have the power of making something. I can demonstrate it through another project, but they have the power of really like just giving you a completely new soundscape out of something that was completely different. So
could you tell us what a granulator does? Just
sure. I'm just gonna see if I have a granulator somewhere here, or I will have to change the song.
Load up or something. Exactly.
Some other. I don't think I used a granulator in this song though.
It's okay then.
Yeah,
that's cool.
But so you know, this was in this song. Another thing that I've used is even that's a sampler, man. Yeah,
no,
so
cool.
This is that's fine, right? Yeah. So this is a section of the later part of the song. Like you can listen to the thing.
It's a counter melody kind of.
Yeah, it's like it's kind of responding to the rhythm.
Yeah.
And so this has again been made out of a train horn. I went to the Nizamuddin station, and this was my raw sample. Again, it's going to be a little loud, so I'm just going to push it down.
So
that's right in front of the engine.
तू सुबह गया था क्या? Like because like there's no crowd की sound or.
I went at so why there's no crowd sound is because I was right ahead of the engine. So you know, people don't usually stand there because people are and that's kind of at the end of the platform.
Yeah.
But I also went in the morning, so that's probably another reason.
That would be the biggest challenge for me to go out and record is how to get rid of the sound of.
Yeah. You can't completely get rid of it.
The people.
But yeah.
But even it's काफी clean sound यार.
Yeah, exactly.
It could be sold as a sample. Of a horn.
Yeah. For sure, yeah. So I mean, would you like me to?
I mean, मेरे को लग रहा था कि that you used couple of synths in this because it sounded so analog in general, like because you made everything out of samples. That's pretty interesting.
I could go to another track which is
let's go for it. Let's go for that.
Let me just shift then.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah, so this is a song called Naad, which released very recently last year, and it features Aditya Datta on tabla. He's playing live tabla for the whole song, and I'm doing a lot of effect stuff on his tabla. So you can hear, I'm just going to go a little ahead. Let's go further ahead. So there's a lot of there's this part where I play like a synth solo.
Yeah. Sounds really, really thick.
Yeah, that's the Mother 32 by Moog.
Right.
One of the best synthesizers, man. Yeah.
For bass, right?
Yeah, for bass, for leads.
Or for leads. Yeah.
Leads, yeah, exactly. It's amazing. So
external instrument ke through kaam karke, like you're sending the MIDI to analog synths and then recording them back.
Yeah.
Recording the automations. Okay.
Yeah. So sometimes I do it completely live. I would do like the automation and playing together to get it really like, there's a lot of fun in that sometimes.
Definitely. It's more movement and you can...
Yeah. But sometimes when you need to, let's say you're playing the lead and you feel that you need to modulate the filter of the Moog and as well as modulate the resonance or switch on the VCA or something, then you can't do so many things at the same time. So you would probably just record the part without the modulation of the synth. And then there's just like delete the audio and re-record the audio with doing those automations by hand.
Yeah. या तो एक automation से हो गया तो दूसरे को resonance को बाद में add कर दिया, वैसे भी कर सकते हैं.
Exactly. Yeah. No. So this is completely like, because it's analog, right? So it's like if I am changing the resonance on my Moog Mother 32, it's being recorded. So it's like...
But you could record the automation of that filter itself, can't you? Like on an external instrument.
No, not with Mother 32. You can't. Like you cannot...
Connect it. चल इसको discuss करेंगे बाद में.
We'll discuss this, but yeah.
But so, yeah, I mean, but like basically the idea is that you record everything with different automations and उसके बाद यहाँ पे ले आता. ठीक है.
Yeah. So
at the start you're using different kind of effects, right? Like that was really interesting.
Yeah. So the tabla is actually very. Can I just minimize this? Yeah. Okay. So in the beginning, the song just starts with the tabla, and it's very lo-fi. Like this whole humongous chain that is there. If I switch this chain off, you'll hear the real tabla sound, but it sounds like this right now. That's without the chain.
Right.
And I'm just going to push the volume. And that's with the processing. So the idea is to make it sound like kind of like almost like not like tabla so much.
Right.
And then
have that resonance. Like
it also has that resonance. Yeah. And then there's this drone like synth that starts coming in, which I use Massive a lot.
Okay.
So there's a lot of automation on Massive as well. So one thing I also like to do a lot, which I think it's again not a trick thing and I don't try to overuse it, but you can play a lot with resonance and cutoff in a certain way to give more like a human character to your synth. Mm-hmm. Because as you raise the resonance, most synthesizers will start screaming a little,
Yeah.
In the character. So like, you can notice it here.
And you can use it in the like more like uplifting parts or such, right?
Yeah, or like, like listen to this, I'll solo the... You see what just happened? Like it's like we're doing this weird like grunt kind of sounds.
Yeah,
so again, if I didn't add that kind of modulation, what will happen is that it'll probably just sound very plain and simple.
Like that's where sound design comes in, right? Like I mean, if you agar tumhe sound design aata hai, to you can make subtle changes within and where it's supposed to matter, kahan par change kar sakte hain, right?
Exactly. So and this whole section is actually one chord. It's almost a 1 minute section, man. But if you listen to it in the song, I don't think I've ever felt or anyone else has ever told me that, hey man, is this you're just holding one chord or like whatever, because it's just one chord, the whole thing. I mean, not the whole song, but this whole section is one chord.
Yeah, the pads, right?
The pads, yes, exactly. So one cool thing I would also at this point like to share, and this is something that's not in the released version, but I do this when I do the song live. So Aditya is not usually present with me to play this song live. So I'm just sending his tabla as a layer in my set, but I do a lot of automations on his tabla because it gets super interesting to play with tabla and delay. So I've set up this little chain for just quickly resampling as well. And should I go for it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I haven't added a delay. 1 second. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to send, this is an H delay by Waves. It's a ping pong delay. And I'm going to talk a little about the delay a little later. But this is the tabla dry. I mean, with my processing, but without the delay. And now let's send it to the delay. And just decrease the blend a little. Yeah, now, so something I like to do a lot of times is like I would, like decrease the low pass.
Okay.
And and even like increase the
feedback all the way.
Increase the feedback, yes. What that's going to do is like, and this is 1/8 dotted. And let's resample this. So 1 second. This is on feedback now. Yeah. But let's just yeah. In. Okay, cool. Let's increase the volume here a little bit.
So we're recording the delay channel, basically. The return channel.
Just the delay channel, yeah.
Correct. Okay.
And let's just solo this as well.
Okay. So you basically morph it like...
Yeah. And now if I go further... It's not it's almost like
you're basically using a filter as low cut within the delay, right?
Yeah.
That's
so
interesting.
It's almost like, and if this is something I'm doing with, now if I go back and listen to this, it's a completely different rhythm, and this is going a little extreme with it, but you could also use something like this with as simple as like you might just play one guitar note and then delay the hell out of it, and it's going to, what will happen at some point with certain delays, also you have to know which delay to use, but with certain delays that can feed back on themselves, they will start generating almost like a pad like sound. So so you can make use of that somewhere else, or that's one
basically
way I
use
it.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it in the sense, maybe I noticed this in your music कि तूने जब भी तेरा वो आ रहा होता है ना, like maybe drop has to come, you might be using this repetition as the context of feedback, and then it arrives there, or vice versa.
I also use this resampling technique a lot of times to fill spaces, like when you play a synthesizer and you, like, let's say you have a simple reverb on the synthesizer, but now when you play, like, now you blend some delay and reverb and resample that and do something to that and then add it to that synth, what will happen is that, and it could be a synth solo that I'm playing, but what will happen is that it'll start sounding a little unique in the space it's occupying. So resampling that way is interesting,
Yeah. Also I see that you tend to like to layer काफी करता है चीजों को, like you
I layer
a lot of things to
like in this in this song, like if you listen to the synth solo, which
like
is
the melodic part में बोल रहा हूँ, melodic part में काफी सारी layers, I think you try to blend it, right? Yeah,
exactly. So like this is the solo. Second. Yeah, so now isme the actual solo layer is just, wait, I'll have to identify which one that is.
So these are two different takes of the same synth?
This is one. So there's one solo layer, which is like this one, I think. Let me just solo it and listen. No. Yeah. But then there's this noise layer, which is just the noise from the Mother 32, but playing the same notes.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. So you can blend it accordingly.
Yeah, exactly. And because it gives it more like, and then there is a support, because there's a support on the left and right for the solo, which makes it like super big. Like the solo should sound like huge.
So you record this like...
I record it separately. So
okay.
Yeah.
That's why it's every time different, and you don't have to delay it and all that. Okay.
No. I don't have to. And also like I would keep, when I'm playing this live, then I will play the main solo layer and I'll improvise there, but the backings will be kind of like still in my set already.
To help you out as well.
Yeah, exactly.
That's interesting, man. Like, क्योंकि I think synth को layer करने से काफी massive sound बन जाती होगी in general. Like, you know, like the in terms of the mix as well.
Yeah.
Like synth को push करना easy हो जाता है.
Yeah, I think that's what also. That's what I think. I am a sucker for when it comes to two instruments, man. Like synthesizers and guitars. I am someone who wants both to really like, you know, like sound really good, and of course like, and even like bass and your kick and stuff, but and I think that's coming from my inspirations. Like a lot of my inspirations are like, you know, the cinematic composers like Hans Zimmer and I mean a lot of others. I'm not just somehow, for some reason I'm not being able to think of them right now, but like Nils Fram, Rival Consoles, a lot of these guys who synthesizers sound like it's going to be one simple melody, but it'll be like sounding great, you know. So
correct. I mean the way they morph things, the way they like, you know, add different kind of parameters and make it sound more human. I feel like the emotions come out through the song.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like
I get it. Yes,
it's doing more stuff with less amount of notes. Like if you know the Interstellar theme, it's just 5 notes. Like, you know, and but that he's made so many like he's developed a whole world around that 5 notes,
right?
Which is you know, and it's not even like it's fast or it's like complicated or, you know, but and I think that's what inspires me a lot, is to make like melodically simple stuff, but how you design the sound around it and textures and everything is what my act is also about. Like, you know, let's create a scape, or let's create like this kind of atmosphere with the music.
Correct. Do you tend to use like slide and pressure, like all these MPE stuff? I think like couple of these morphing features come in MPE, like when
I don't have a device right now which is sensitive with the pressure, but slide for sure. Right. But I don't have I mean I do actually. I'm wrong. I have the push to, which is after touch this thing. So yes, I use the pressure thing sometimes. Right. But
because those kind of things would definitely help.
For sure, man. Like I mean,
कोई करता नहीं उन चीजों को जाके, but I feel अगर कोई करे तो there is a different, like so much that you can achieve. That as you're saying,
it's a very human.
Play कर रखी है, तब भी we
it's
can.
It's a very
like
human thing. Yeah. It's a very human thing to do. Yeah. So like that's what, like even that instrument Rolly is sort of.
It's more.
Is revolves around like how, you know, like if you would see a cello player kind of give a vibrato on their on the neck of the cello, it's very similar to how you would do something on the Rolly, because it's emulating those kind of actions.
Emulating those things, exactly. Yeah. I mean that's what MPE basically supposed to define, and like supposed to like allow us to morph so many things. So many parameters with that. Man, this is great. Like I mean, I think we covered a lot of things which kind of defines कि तेरा sound क्या है, and this is really cool to understand कि that layering is one of the major aspects of getting a really cool sound, because हर एक layer that you are playing has a slightly different character.
I
think you will have to make certain changes so that it sounds stereo as well. वरना अगर सेम ही रिकॉर्ड कर दिया तो कुछ होगा नहीं.
No, you can't
Slightly
record
the filters are open.
Yeah. Something
That's
should
really
be
cool,
different.
man.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And I think the fact that you resample adds that other factor that can't be done with synth. That's the cool part about Ableton Live ना कि हम लोग resample करके चीज़ों को fills add कर सकते हैं, effects बना सकते हैं, right?
कुछ, yeah.
And another cool thing is that कि noise तूने अलग से use कर रखी, so that's like that allows us to mix even better.
Yeah, exactly. And noise is something that, noise is that this is the noise which occupies the super high sort of part of the hearing range.
Yeah.
And with a very high resonance. So it just cuts through, you know.
Play that part with everything.
So it's not like you're noticing it like doing something crazy, but as soon as you switch it off, you do feel something's missing, like you know. So
I think that's one of the things that like in mixing हम लोग को ये भी करना चाहिए, like produce करते हुए कि चीज़ों
को बंद करके देखो, ऑफ करके देखो,
अच्छा लग रहा है इसके बिना उसको हटा ही देते हैं.
Exactly, yeah.
Right,
for sure.
Amazing, man. Thank you so much, bro. Like इतनी सारी information share करने के लिए आज.
No problem, my pleasure.
Like a lot of people would really benefit from this information because there's so many इतने सारे hoax है like in the industry कि I think if I have to go perform, I should make the most complicated setup, or if I have to make music with synths, I have to deal with so much. But I feel कि that's what defines your sound. कि why Goya is because of the fact that you love synths, and the synths do provide that texture and quality. You know, I feel कि अगर एक भी sound synth की हो and rest maybe you're making with Ableton Live, I feel it just adds so much.
Yeah, for sure, man. I actually try to go like, these days I'm like trying to make music where my starting points are never like Ableton only, you know. Yeah,
so it has to be more
but then I would still say that that's not a like, I think a lot of people hearing this will be like, oh, now I need this to make music or something, but my recommendation would be like, no, that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to say that keep your tools limited. Like, don't have like 10 things and not know how to use either of those things, but have like, even if you're using Ableton operator, know it really well, and like, you know.
I'm sure that you might have first, like a lot of us, सबसे पहले हम लोग ने sound design सीखा, right? Because once the production part was done, because तूने पिछला track भी तो wavetable के through बनाया, and I'm telling you, I think this में भी analog लग रहा है कुछ. But it's the fact that कि
नहीं, analog नहीं है इसमें कुछ भी.
Exactly. The fact that कि तू sound design कर सकता है इतना सही with the digital stuff, then only you will go into analog and see कि अच्छा.
वो भी है.
This thing that I was doing it digitally, like in analog, it happens this way. So it's a step-by-step process, I feel. Yeah, we can't just dive into things. But मैं उन लोगों के लिए बोलना चाह रहा था कि जो लोग already music बना रहे हैं and their music is not sounding that interesting. So it's a really cool technique to, I think, slightly भी हम चीज़ों को evolve करें, चाहे drastically भी ना change हो रही, तो it adds up as momentum, as you were saying.
Yeah.
Right. Awesome, bro. Thank you so much. And I mean, guys, you should follow Kitsugi Studios, and the fact that Goya makes such awesome music, go follow me on Spotify, and iska music मेरे को भी फिर सुनना है फिर से वाला. I feel like this specific tabla improvisation. What's the name of this track? Could you please tell us so that
it's Naad. Naad. Yes.
And it recently came out.
Yeah. It's actually not very recent, but it's going to be 1 year by the end of July that this song came out. So it's going to be 1 year. Yeah, I'm going to check this out because मेरे को इस तरह का म्यूजिक काफी सही लगता है. I really love this kind of genre because I started with this kind of genre, and it's really close to my heart. But thanks a lot, bro. Thanks for joining in today. Thank you. I really appreciate you sharing this also.
I really appreciate you sharing this time. Man. Awesome. So guys, I'll see you in the next podcast. Until then, please let us know if there was anything helpful that we shared today. काफ़ी सारी बातें हुई हम लोग कि कैसे स्टूडियो बेसिकली बना सकते हैं. अगर आप लोग स्टूडियो खोलना भी चाह रहे हो तो what all things you have to think about, या फिर now if you're trying to improve your level of production, what all you can do with analog synths, and all these topics I wanted to share because Abhishek is the perfect person who can explain us all these things. So I felt हम लोग एक podcast फिर से बनाते हैं. But thanks so much for joining in. I'll see you in the next one.